Zoom. All right, folks, back with the New Testament. So I did skip over a few chapters because I just think that people aren't really going to take to them, and they're not really pertinent to what people. I mean, I'll go through them later on, but I'm just trying to put up like the most pertinent stuff that I can kind of share some of my experience as well with you guys. So I'm going to read this portion. This is from the new edition, what is it now? The new revised edition, so the most recent version, so the easiest translation, right? Okay. Jesus, chapter 4, I think it's 4. This is Matthew 3:13 to Matthew 4:16, and I know people that probably have hardcore studied the Bible are probably going to be like, Heath, you're making a mess of this whole thing. But the thing about this is I'm trying to make it contemporary for people, because I know a lot of people are going to get totally intimidated. So this is like a spiritual sort of approach to this, right? So let's try to go through this one. Jesus was then led away by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. For 40 days and nights he fasted, and at the end he was famished. The tempter approached him and said, "If you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread." Jesus answered, "Scripture says, man cannot live on bread alone. He lives on every word that God utters." He lives on every word that God utters. So, you guys are, you will find out who or what your choice of what you want to call your God self could be, but this is kind of bringing you guys up to speed. But it's like what I kind of had my little moment there, my little flash of like something godly. It was, I did fast. I didn't fast 40 days, that's for sure. I fasted for 3 days, and I just walked around, and like, I'm just gonna go on camera and say this, I just walked around all my old neighborhoods and did everything right for 4.5 years of sobriety until I finally, and I did almost have a temptation by the devil, because I had that voice in the back of my head. And the thing, I'm going to tell you guys what happened. I had a voice in my head, and it said, now I'm going to slow down time for you to see what you can have if you want to go to like the bad shit, the bad side, I guess you could say. So what happened was, it was like I was in reality, but I was walking. And they say like the universe, which is like a verse, like a song, right? Like the universe, it's always moving at a tempo, right? So we're always moving at a tempo. But what happened was I was moving at a faster tempo than the rest of the people walking around. So let's say I was doing like, let's go hip-hop tempos or something like that. Like 95 is like a hip-hop standard, like boom bap tempo. I was going like probably like a 120, right? So these people were walking by slow, and I could see all the reactions, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? But I didn't, at the time though, I didn't know it's like what I was projecting out, right? So my tempo just got sped up, like my brain's tempo just went off the rocker. So that's when I went to the liquor store, and I picked up just a 15-pack of beer, and it was like a magnet. Like I was on a magnet getting dragged around doing these things, like it was all out of my control, right? So this is just my own experience, and I was trying to get this thing out of my fucking head, and the thing was like, so I went to the park. I drank 5 beers in the garden, and he's like, "You wanted your garden, Heath," and because I kept always fucking crying about fucking the garden, like John Lennon in the garden, like Yoko, like with that whole love story. And then like myself, like I don't know, I have, I guess, like not an attraction, but like I just like to be outdoors more, right? Because I know these screens are poison, even though we got to use them for today's tools and technology. I know that they can shadow cast and mirror image and piggyback different networks on touchscreens and stuff like that. Little did I know, I was getting piggybacked on networks too, and people are going to say, "Oh, Heath, you're crazy, da-da-da-da-da. You're going to find this stuff out. I guarantee it." People are going to come back in about 3 years and say, "Oh, Heath was right about everything the whole time, but we just didn't want to cling on to this." I guarantee it, because I was firsthand when I had to make that split between consciousnesses, because and I do all this stuff, like I'm on autopilot half the time. I don't know who the heck's controlling me. I probably got a whole group of spirits somewhere around me controlling me, making me, but not all the time. Like, I'm reading this book to you guys right now on my own free will, right? But I mean, you have guiding forces. There's always a backlog. There's always always something, or it's just like, and it's the magic of it all too, right? Because I mean, we get into these little stagnant environments. We live in these sort of enclosed boxes, and people are more or less so confined to their way of thinking, when like I said before, like Jesus was a man. Like I use Jesus. You can use whoever, but and I was always using Jesus with the whole, like, I haven't been a religious man. Like I'm spiritual, right? But I just chose Jesus Christ as my, figurehead to sort of just go with the plan to kind of get into a new sort of level of consciousness. And this stuff's not for everybody either, right? You can't force this stuff on anybody or anything like that either. It's when folks want to try to make that shift into like a higher consciousness. And don't get me wrong, my nerves are fucking wrecked all the time, and I still haven't even recovered from when I had that moment. And like, you know what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna show you. You guys probably won't be able to see it, but there's a church right there where all these lights are on, over right there, and there's a cross that's on the top of that church. So what I would do so grab my book here. So what I would do would be, I would pray to that cross. I'd pray first on the ground, and then I'd pray to that cross afterwards and just say thank you, and just be thankful. My prayers would never be asking for anything, and I was content in my sobriety. And I was at a time when I just finished that song Mountaintop, and I just put it out, and that song was like me rapping to myself about, it's like, you can't do anything else with rap music anymore. You're at what I thought was my mountaintop, and my, like I put out I don't know how many albums, a whole bunch of them and stuff like that. And in my mind I was like, I just couldn't do any more rap albums, and I was content with where my level of writing and shit like that was all good with me, right? So, and then I was always studying like not occult writers. Like I started out like, it wasn't necessarily a cult, but I really took to the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and that's why where I'm gonna get to the whole like the cross in a circle, because and that's something that happened to me actually, because it was like when they say like the crosses, you'll see the crosses over you, the cross is coming over your body, but that's just a way of splitting your brain, I think, from the left and right hemisphere into like a four sections of your brain. And that's when you can start grabbing onto these higher frequencies, and these higher frequencies they're polywaves. And this is like a spoiler alert for people, I think, because they're called a polywave, which is multiple wave files, and then it's obviously there's light and all that other bullshit that goes around with it. I don't know too much about how this works yet, but I'll fill you guys in when I get there. Now I'm all lost in my Bible. Okay, so once again, the devil took him to a very high mountain. See, and I've never read this before. A very high mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their glory. All these, he said, I will give you if you only fall down and do my homage. But Jesus said, "Begone, Satan. Scripture says, you shall do homage to the Lord of God and worship him alone." Then the devil left him, and angels appeared and waited on him. So honestly, that's pretty much what, except I went to the garden, and I've just released a song called Mountaintop, and I've never read this before. So this is just having this experience. So maybe, I don't know, it all lines up a little bit too much for me too, but let's keep going. Be gone, Satan. Devil left him, appeared, and the angels waited on him. When he heard that John had been arrested, Jesus withdrew to Galilee, and leaving Nazareth, he went and settled at the Capernaum of Sea of Galilee, in the district of Zebulun and Naphtali. This was in fulfillment of the passage in the prophet Isaiah, which tells of the land of Zebulun, the land of Naphtali, and the road by the sea. The land began beyond Jordan, heathen Galilee, and says. The people that lived in darkness saw light. So that's what I was always, and that's where I would, like the Emerald Tablets, I took much more like Thoth and Hermes both had writings. So Thoth was Thoth the Atlantean, who did the Emerald Tablets, and predates the Bible, and I honestly think that, well, so far, like, it reads easier, but you got to understand it wasn't written in English. It was written in Sumerian text, right? It was written in Sumerian, and then Sumerian, I think the next step from that was Hebrew, sort of like a Hebrew writing, and Hebrew writing and Sumerian are similar to light language, and light language is what you're going to use in the what we're going to use, all human beings, I think. Light language is going to be the future language, which is more syllable based, like I can't do it. It's embarrassing. You guys are going to laugh at me, even though you probably already are. But it's light language. It's more faster and it's more syllable based. So because as you become as you kind of like, you become more aware of your surroundings, which is a good thing and a bad thing too, because you're sensitive to light, and you get, I don't know, maybe it'll get easier for me or whoever, like, that's kind of going through this whole frequency shift, because apparently the Schumann resonance right now, which is, what is it now, 430, not 4, I don't even, I think it's 432 or something like that. The Schumann resonance basically got sped up. So what, that tempo that, when fucking probably Satan or who the fuck ever got into my head, sped me up to that fast tempo, to this new rate of pace, which was what happened to probably Jesus too, way back in the day, because time is linear. Yeah, time is always at a standstill. We as men create time in our own head. So the more you look at a clock and create time, then, you know what I mean, then your brain is constantly, subconsciously always monitoring time, right? Because we're if you want time to stand still, don't look at a clock. If you want the news to go away, don't look at the news. If you want war to end, just go out and shine your best reflection on your brothers and sisters and neighbors and grocery stores and wherever else you got to go to do your stuff, right? So this is like layman's terms Bible edition, right? So this is just like me telling you, pardon me, my story. So, because like all these words and stuff, we got to still talk words. Okay. From that day, Jesus began to proclaim the message, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is upon you. So when Jesus said that, not something that goes into occult teachings. So when he says, repent, the kingdom of heaven is upon you. So when you say, and that's where like Babylon kind of twisted our language, because when you're spelling and you're making words, you're spelling, so you're casting a spell. And this goes to like, even like Hollywood is a derivative of like holy wood, like holy wood, which was like a spell casting wand. Like you take your holy wood wand and cast a spell, and like Hollywood is just casting a big spell on mankind. And don't get me started on this whole MK Ultra programming and shit like that we all just snapped out, like all these MK Ultra babies. And I was born in '82, so I didn't even realize that I was under this fucking MK Ultra fucking programming until I snapped out of it, and I did the split, and then you start noticing like the butterflies and the owl eyes, and you're like, these fucking things, and all the whole time when you're a little baby, and let's say you're a C-section or they take you away from your mother, or like you get a guy like, I'll use Tupac Shakur as an example here, because they say his mother had the baby in prison, so I almost can guarantee, and she was an influential Black Panther at the time, so I can almost guarantee what happened with Tupac Shakur and all the tattoos, like the Egyptian gods and stuff like that. This is all tied in together. So let's say that she had the baby in prison. That baby got taken out of her custody the minute that she gave birth, or how to say it, whatever happened. And then they obviously programmed Tupac at the time to do what he did, because they knew he was going to grow up to be talented or whatever. So they took him out of his mother's womb. And I know a lot of people are going to say, oh, this is blasphemy. But I can almost guarantee that he was on a program. But they say that Tupac, same thing happened to Tupac, where he kind of snapped out of his programming, I guess, and he kind of knew what was going to happen, so he put it. So when you see that last picture of Tupac in the vehicle, when he looks like a deer in the fucking headlights, they say that he already staged a clone to take the bullets for him. So I don't know if that's true or not, but I'm putting it out there. He's a smart enough guy to do so. If it was me and I knew it was going to be my time, I would just, if you're just going to put a fucking a meat locker body in a fucking vehicle to get shot at. Then, and they say that he went to his girlfriend's at the hotel and changed clothes when really he could have just went there and just deked out and threw that clone back in the car with Shug. So, and to set up this whole stage for a murder scene. I don't know. Do I think it's true? I would imagine this is true because I'm usually pretty right on these things. So, and I've heard a couple other people say the same thing too. So, but this was a theory that I came up with in my own head, and it's a theory. That's a dirty word on the internet these days, is theory. But a lot of these theories, you're gonna see, you're gonna know, you're gonna find out. I'm just trying to lay it on people easily, right? Because I got, like, honestly, like, I am almost just dreading, like, I got my second chance when I woke up in the hospital this time, but I'm almost, like, dreading what I gotta do for the next 10 years, because this is just service work that I've been doing now, stone cold sober, like, I had my 20 years of being an alcoholic or whatever. Yeah, more than 20 years, 20 some odd years of being about 20 years, being an alcoholic and, being a complete, party animal and this, that, and the next thing, life in the party. And then when I sobered up finally, I spent like 5 years, and I just turned into a complete hermit here at my house, and just made music, and that's all I did. Music, because I always had to fill the void for something. For something, right? And I remember, like, laying down in my bed, and I was trying to teach myself how to mix and how to master and how to get my levels right. And it took me a long time because nobody showed me, but I got it off YouTube videos. Like, I learned off YouTube videos, and I go practice it myself. But it took me a long time. Like, I'd wake up and I was so, like, I had fierce determination to do this, right? So I'd wake up in the middle of the night and like, yeah, I'd jump back up on the computer and be like, God, if I just adjust this one treble level or this one, when it turned out it was, I got it down to a science. For myself, I got it down to a science. If I got to mix other people's records, it's a little bit more difficult, right? But yeah, it's just like when you have this fierce determination to get somewhere, then you kind of, and then you're going to hit a plateau. It's the waveform. It's the symbol for the universe. You're always going to hit that plateau. Then you're going to have to dip back down again. I'm lucky that I only hit that plateau for about 3 days of drinking. This happened. I had 2 or 3 bouts of drinking, and I've talked to a lot of other people actually that around that same time frame, they had that same sort of bout of something serious accidents were going on with people's fucking heads at the time. So what I think and what I have a feeling it is a lot of the MK Ultra programming that we all were subjected to when we were kids with the whole. I think we snapped out of that, to be honest, and I've heard other people already say this too, but I just the more I think about it, and it makes sense to me, right? And a lot of people still might be in that program, and I think a lot of the things that are happening with the whole what I'm talking about, I think that's going to keep people under that sort of MK spell, right? And MK just, I forget what it's, Monarch, it's the Monarch programming, like the butterfly, the Monarch programming, Monarch being the Queen of England sort of program. The Queen of England, which my last video on the Holy Bob basically said, she's going to step down, so she's going to get fucking Schwarzenegger terminated pretty quick out of her seat. Then there's going to be more scandals, and then the land is going to fall back upon the people. So the people are going to get to have the land back and the freedom. And even like myself, don't get me wrong, like I've been running the same script on myself. Like I'm so used to having, the authority and the whole, regular sort of like 9 to 5 sort of thing. But you're going to see that slowly but surely this is going to get by, I think, around the year 2030, this is going to slowly get broken apart. You're going to start to see that there was a lot of corruption. Not necessarily corruption, but more or less, I think, evolution for mankind, because I think that I don't think we were ready, because they say that we were kind of born into a slave species, being descendants from like Anunnaki, and then different like breeds of, like they say we're like a Heinz 27 mix of alien or whatever, right? And you know, you got people that you can't see because they're at a higher frequency or in a lower frequency. You can't see these different like races playing around with DNA, and you know, they call us the living library, the garden. Like that's where I get the garden from. We're in the garden. Like who the fuck knows? Like this is just the way it goes, right? But I think the best thing to do in these times, and quoted from probably the most horrible woman in the world. No, just kidding. But like Bonnie says, like just be kind to one another. Be kind, because we're all going to get through this in one way or another. And the good part about this is people that fear the afterlife or fear death or whatever. I've done like, I think, well, I can count twice now. But I mean, it's been a lot more than that with like DTs and alcoholism and this, that, the next thing, and living on. I remember living on the streets, just waking up and somebody like tied a 6-pack to my wrist, and I was like, "What the fuck happened there?" It's like I got abducted by fucking extraterrestrials, and they dropped me off in a nice warm place to sleep with a 6-pack tied around my wrist, and it's like, yeah, that happened like twice. And once I woke up in the hospital with 2 brand new decks of cigarettes in my pocket. I was like, how the fuck did I even get here? And who put cigarettes in my pocket? And I was like dressed to, and I woke up invigorated. So I mean, there's a lot of forces at work here. Like I mean, it's not. But there's a lot of forces at work, but you got to understand that we're sitting in the driver's seat. We're the mainframe for whatever, right? So the fun that they're having in like a spirit realm is that they're kind of steering us in directions that we can't really perceive yet, because we're still like, you know, we're still the human being form, right? Where a lot of these things are formless, right? So they're just toying around with us, which eventually, like the universe, like the human evolution goes, we'll get to the top sort of thing, and then we keep going up in frequency. I see frequency or dimensions or whatever, right? And I wouldn't be in a rush to jump into super high dimensions or anything like that. Like, you know, this is just a human experience, which is a beautiful thing. There's probably lots of different things going on that would kill to be in a human, or I don't think you die anyways, but so this is like the whole human experience, and you know, just trying to make it as positive as possible. And people don't have to, they can take it lightly, because I mean, the more that you look at pop culture and stuff like that right now, the more that you will see that it's a joke. It's just a joke on us. Like you go through all of Eddie RD's old material, like the joke's on us. Ha ha ha, have a laugh. Jokers to the left of me, clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with you, meaning it's all just fucking jokes they're playing on our fucking human mainframe fucking computer. So that's something that people should, I mean, it's not all a joke. Like the pain is real, trust me, and I've felt my fair share of pain, and I for some reason don't think that I'm through feeling that pain yet. And you know, you can hear it in my voice that it's like it's still shaky from me, and I just did, you know, 7 days in the hospital. But at the same time, I'm glad that I did, because like I said, it sobered me up again. It got me off the booze, because once I hit that first drink, you're a rocket shooting through the sky, like fucking, what's his name said there, Freddie Mercury. Queen, what's that song? It's a good song anyways, but yeah. So I'm just going to finish this chapter of this. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to leave it off there, but so that's just some material to work off. I'm just going to use this, I think, and like I'm just kind of doing this on the fly, but I think a lot of this I'm just going to use sort of like the Bible just to kind of guide my own sort of speech into my own story, because I think that it's more or less just for my documenting myself and my different things and different aspects that I've had over my life. But it's I think that there's going to be a lot of useful information, because I know pop culture pretty good. So, and I managed, you know, I got all my memories the last 39 years of doing a lot of different things. I got a lot of, like, I'm not bragging, but I have a lot of life experience, I guess you could say, because I've been in a lot of seats and I've been in a lot of places, and I had the drinking, it was a problem. But even like people say, oh, you drank all those years, and I say, yeah, but I don't, I don't regret drinking all those years because I wouldn't have had the balls to do half of the stupid stuff that I did if I didn't have a drink or didn't have that liquid courage, right? So that was one of the things that kind of, loosened me up. It was the oil in my joints that kind of kept me rocking in a free world, so to speak, right? But yeah, and it's just experience stuff and stuff like that. So, but I'll keep trying to get these videos out and getting these videos to people so that they can. And if you guys have questions or comments, please ask, because I mean, I'm not saying that I can sometimes I can channel in the Akashic from time to time. But if I don't get or have a query or a question, and I'm not in the right sort of like right now, I don't know, I probably could because I'm shaky, right? Because you got to be at a pretty high vibration to catch that wavelength of the Akashic, and then you kind of flow into it. And there's people that can probably just tap right into it. Me, I don't shut my eyes off or channel, and everything I channel is already inside of my body. I just have to tune into all these ambient frequencies that have different information fields in them, right? So. And just put out my what the heck do they call it now? My torus field sort of senses, because we're all just little torus spherical particles that are just dancing, like what's his fucking name says, Jim Carrey. Torus field particles dancing around, a whole bunch of little particles all having light shining on them that have super fucking memory capacity in the torus field structure, right? Everything's a torus field at the core center of it. And a torus field, it can be smaller than a nanoparticle, which is tiny too, which is people say, oh, the nanoparticles and the chips and this, that, the next thing. You got to understand here, we're in the alien ant farm, literally, right? So it's like a fucking petri dish. It's a petri dish. They just throw ingredients in a petri dish and see what happens, right? And they're on different planes of existence, guiding us around, or you could have your higher self just throwing obstacles at you, just laughing up there, because when you die, you don't die, you just. Yeah. But, so that's the one positive message people can get out of this. You'll see, and I can remember when I was a little kid, I used to say to myself, okay, about like going up to heaven or whatever, if there's a heaven, what my mom, let's say my mom, because she's already passed away, but I would say, if my mom's up there, maybe she wasn't happy with herself after she gave birth to me at 30 some odd years, or however, she was like probably 30 years old. I don't know how old she was. She could be watching this for all I know. Who knows? She could be in me right now channeling me to say this on here. I don't even know. But let's just keep rolling. So I could say to myself, okay, well, if I see my mom in heaven, and she's not going to look the way I remember her, because maybe she was happiest with herself at 22 or 23 years old or something like that. Maybe I was happiest with myself at let's say my age, 39, where I've been sober for 5 years except for my lapse. So heaven's experience of everything would be, you can't define heaven because you only have these memories of these people at that timestamp, sort of, not timestamp, but yeah, I guess you could say a timestamp. So you only have these memories of these people at a timestamp. So heaven then would not be authentic. And this is something that I thought about when I was a little kid. So I always had that question, but then I didn't realize that, like I said on my other video, the heaven is the work of your hands and your thought process and the way that you shine your light. That makes up your heaven. So the more experience and the more versions of heaven you have after you exit your body and your soul goes back into the frequency, different frequency ranges or whatever it does. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but I just got a little bit of, sometimes I get into some knowledge here and there once in a blue moon, so to speak. But so I think that heaven is what you make it, but the more life experience, and a lot of guys that are very, very knowledgeable about this say the same thing. The more patterns and the more frequencies that you can tap into while you're in your human body, and the more experience that you can get, which means traveling and meeting different people, the more versions of heaven that you can put together when your human experience is over and your soul has absorbed all those different experiences, because we're just imprinting it. We're an imprinter on our brain, right? So everything that we perceive and everything that it's not even perception, it's I guess you could say it's perception. It is perception, but it's more or less, we're projectors. So we project out, we take the information in. So our eyes, they're not seeing out, they're actually seeing it. We're inside out, so to speak. But I'm far too frazzled to talk about how that whole system works right this minute. But I think I'm gonna leave the video off here. So everybody have a good night, and it's the New Testament, but I'll try to cover more. So I'll just take a little blur about each and everything, because this is something that I've been wanting to do for a while. And believe me when I tell you that I'm not even me behind the wheel half the time in this third life that I'm on now. This is a lot of people probably, or spirits or whoever, just wants me to just get this out. Get this out there. So I'll leave it there for tonight. Thanks so much, you guys, and I'm just gonna keep continuing to make readings and stuff like that. And if you have questions, or you think I'm a loon or whatever, put it in the comment box, and I will either answer your question, or if you call me a bad name, I'm gonna call you one back on this thing. Believe you me. Okay, bye, you guys.